up and welcome to the Rival Fantasy live stream. I am your host, Neil Maligno. I am joined by nobody. Bruce and Brian are both out today. We actually had some scheduling things going on, so that's why we're going live today on Saturday instead of Sunday, our typical 11:30 a.m. live stream. So just so that's out there, there is no live stream tomorrow for Start City Device. It is this show right here. Figured we get it in one way or the other if we couldn't go live tomorrow on Sunday. So we're doing it today. We may also end up doing this next weekend. We'll see. Maybe Bruce or Brian can join me on that show. But for today, it'll be just me. Now, we are going to do a couple of things here. Obviously, we're going to recap Thursday, see what came away from that game that was significant to talk about. Then we'll also talk about if there's any injuries going on out there that need to be addressed, where, again, this isn't Sunday morning, so it's a little harder. Things aren't declared for a lot of guys. A lot of guys aren't declared out if they're going to be out. So that's something you'll want to monitor closer to when it's actually happening. But however, we'll still talk about it. We'll still bring it up. We'll also look at Rival Fantasy challenges, bingo. We'll do a bingo card together. And of course, if you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. You guys are, good to go for that. I will be answering all questions that are dropped in there. And we'll just look at whatever you guys bring up. I also have some things on the doc here to talk about. We'll see what pops up as we go along here. I think the best way to start off, as people possibly trickle in here, is to look at the recap for Thursday. And so when we look at this Steelers Patriots game, it was actually, I want to say, going into it, I wasn't very excited. Obviously there was challenges and stuff to be made on Rival for that, like Trubisky versus Zappy. I thought was a fun one to do. And it actually ended up playing out, very closer than I thought. I kind of threw it out there as more of a, the game wasn't that exciting to me going into it. So let me use some Rival, challenges or bingo cards and ways to make it a little more exciting. But it ended up being okay. The Patriots won 21-18. As I always do, we'll talk about some of the significant stats, fantasy players, things that came out of the game that, are worth talking about. So we'll start with the fact that Trubisky threw for a touchdown. He also rushed for a touchdown. He had like 20 fantasy points, I want to say, better than I thought he would. Better than it looked going in, first half, I want to say. It was looking bleak, but he ended up turning it around a little bit as the game went on. So Trubisky did okay. Probably similar to what you would get from Pickett. It wasn't nothing where, he blew you out the water. You were, totally blown away and surprised. I'm assuming not a lot of people started Trubisky. The only way you were starting Trubisky or either of these quarterbacks, honestly, is if you were in like a really bad jam at quarterback, meaning there was nobody on waivers besides those guys. Maybe you were in a super flex league, 2QB league, and so you had to throw them out there. That I understand. That's more, logical, especially with all the injuries and stuff that have been going on. But hopefully, for the most part, we're in that fantasy playoff, space right now. So hopefully you're not having to depend on guys like Trubisky, which you are, though, if you're in like a super flex or something and you're dealing with some crazy injuries. I get it. I know we had some questions last week where some of the, viewers were like, who do I start? It was like three, bad quarterbacks. Bad quarterbacks. So I understand that it is happening for some people. All right. So Trubisky had an okay game, pretty good, 20 fantasy points, better than I would have expected. Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, rough, pretty rough. Right. I mean, if you were in PPR, I think they got around like 7 or 8 points. If you weren't in PPR, then they got like four each, I think it was. So either way, it wasn't good, right? Like you didn't come away happy whether you were in PPR or standard. So that was a rough game from a running back's perspective. Not much to really talk about. The fact is, you're both eating into each other's work. Maybe if you relied on one of these guys, if the Steelers only focused on one of them and gave them all that work, you would have got double-digit points, but that's just not the way this backfield works. So, unfortunately, if you start either one of those guys, you're not feeling great. Deontay Johnson had 3 receptions, 57 yards, and a touchdown. That was probably the second best thing coming out of the game for the Steelers, besides Trubisky, if you actually went that route. So he had a pretty decent game. I know people have been feeling good, trending upward on a guy like Deontay Johnson. A lot of weird things is happening in this wide receiver room. I don't know what's going on with Pickens, and guys seem very unhappy. I don't know what's happening exactly, but Deontay Johnson came away with a decent game. Pat Freiermuth also had a bad game. So basically, if you had to start any of these Steelers, you weren't happy with the running backs, the tight end, most of the wide receivers besides Deontay Johnson. Trubisky, if you had to go down that route, you're actually probably pleasantly surprised. Same thing goes with the Patriots side in terms of Zappy. 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, similar fantasy points to Trubisky. I think they both ended the game like really close, both like 20, 21, somewhere in that range. So Zappy came away pretty good. If you had Mac Jones prior to this, you probably didn't expect Zappy to play well because Mac Jones hasn't been playing well. The Patriots haven't been winning, and here they go and win this game. Probably not the best thing for the Patriots, honestly. At this point, they want to get a higher draft pick. They only had 2 wins coming into the game, so not really the ideal way for this game to play out for them. But if you had to start Zappy in fantasy, again, you're in one of those very, very unfortunate situations. You actually weren't that upset. 20 points isn't bad. So that was a positive from that perspective. So really both these quarterbacks, if you were in that bad of a spot and you had to play them, you didn't do too bad. Then Zeke Elliott, he actually had the most fantasy points in the game. Across both teams, Zeke Elliott had the most fantasy points. He had 27 fantasy points in PPR, 68 yards rushing, 72 yards receiving, 7 receptions. That was the big thing here. And he also had a touchdown. So Zeke Elliott, who knew? Former Cowboy, they let him go. They're done with him. He goes and signs with the Patriots, and then he goes out here and balls out, and a big opportunity for him. And so, yeah, again, I don't know how many people started him, how bad of a situation you felt like you had to be in to do that. If you felt like it was a gamble, a tough choice, but if you had it in you and you flexed him or whatever you might have done, Zeke Elliott balled out for you. So Zeke Elliott had 27 points again in PPR scoring. That was the most of the game for any player. Juju also had 4 receptions for 90 yards. Not terrible. I would have loved to see a touchdown at the end of that, but not bad. Again, I don't know how many people are starting Juju. Not really a favorite of mine personally. Not somebody I would have recommended going into the game. So I'm not a Juju fan, but he was their best wide receiver of the game. And then Hunter Henry had 3 receptions, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns. So this was the other, big outlier of the game. The quarterbacks did pretty well, better than people expected. Zeke did well. And then Hunter Henry came out with a pretty good game. Again, at tight end, I always talk about this. If you can get a few receptions, 40, 50, 60 yards, and a touchdown, you just had one of the best tight end performances of the week, basically. So that's how it goes at tight end. It's a weird position. So when you get a guy who goes for 3 receptions, 40 yards, and 2 touchdowns, you did really well, right, for the week. So Hunter Henry, I think he had 19 fantasy points, if I recall, when I checked. So again, good game from Hunter Henry. You gotta love it. Again, I don't know how many people started him. He had, been kind of up and down this year. Started really well, had some lulls. Again, we've talked about the Patriots offense just has not been great. And so if people benched a lot of these players, I understand, right? Like, we didn't go in with a ton of confidence in these guys. And if you would have asked on start sit last week or coming into this week, these were not a lot of the players that we would have recommended. And the same really goes for the Steelers. I mean, at this point, like, I wouldn't have recommended a bunch of Steelers. I think Jaylen Warren probably would have been a guy that we talked decently about. Patriots defense isn't terrifying or one that you would necessarily think that they would play horrible against. But here they did. They didn't play great. So it is what it is. It's not something you could really predict. I'm just making sure we go ahead and, post these things on Twitter that we're live. I always like to get that out there, that we're actually on the live, because I want to get to as many, questions and stuff that may pop up. And I know this is a different time than normal that we go live. So I don't know if we're going to get a ton of questions because it is just an odd time for the show to go live. So I understand if a lot of people don't come around for that. 1 second here. I'm just tweeting this out really quick just to make sure everyone's aware. Cause I try to cover our bases, man. It's tough when you have a live stream, everyone anticipates a certain day, and then you switch that on them. And so I wanted to make sure we covered our bases and let everybody know that it's out. Let me see. Okay, perfect. All right, so now we got a Thursday recap out the way. We can look at some injuries. Before we do that, I do want to just pull up Rival Fantasy really fast. Let's go ahead and bring that up on the screen. All right, so here's Rival Fantasy. Obviously, if you're new to the show, you're not familiar with it, you may not know, Rival Fantasy is a platform that runs this show. We have challenges on there. We have fantasy bingo on there. We also have season long. Obviously, if you hadn't started a league already, you're not really caring too much about the season long side of things. But even the season long, I just want to show why it's unique, why it's different. You have this very cool platform, everything very unique to Rival Fantasy. We continuously update. The devs are working hard to, constantly make this the best, platform possible for you guys. So this is what it looks like when you're in your roster. You can move your players up and down like, you typically would expect. Things that make it unique are in-league betting. If you see here, you click on any matchup you want, and you can actually view bets. And so when you see Clock Dodgers $5, it means I'm Clock Dodgers. I put $5 on my team for this week. PJ's team did not bet against me, and I don't know. We don't. I don't think we had any Thursday night players, so he could technically still bet as long as the Thursday game hasn't happened yet. He can actually still apply a bet. I can show you some leagues where things are a little more like here, for instance. In this game here, I bet on myself. This is football bet on me as well. And then these two teams bet against my matchup. So it's a very fun way to either root for your buddies, your friends, your family, to go against your coworkers, to be competitive, to just add another layer of fun to the fantasy game, right? So that's one of the unique aspects to Rival Fantasy season long. So I really wanted to highlight that in case people weren't familiar with it. But again, new platform. This is our first season and season long. We're very proud of what we did this year. We got a lot of great feedback. Obviously, there's things we're continuing to upgrade. Literally, if you're on the site, you'll notice like updates every single week. Little things sometimes, big things other times. It just really depends. And then if you're not playing a season long on there because you missed it when the season was actually started, you could play things like this, like challenges. And the cool thing I mentioned this for also is because you may have some leagues where you're not in the fantasy playoffs, right? And now you're like, well, man, my season's over. My fantasy season's over. I didn't make the fantasy playoffs. Like, what kind of fun is this? I don't even care about football. I don't want to talk about it. I lost. Not in the case of Rival Fantasy, because you come here and you can still play challenges and still play fantasy. It's still fantasy points. So if you see here, who will score more fantasy points? It's very simple, cut and dry. No props, no other weird things here. Is straight up fantasy points. So in this case, we're literally looking at a challenge where someone has put $10 on Tyreek Hill, or multiple people have put up to $10 on Tyreek Hill. So that bet is available for you to take the other side. You take Lamar Jackson, you take the $10. And if you place this bet, you're saying that you believe Lamar Jackson will score more fantasy points than Tyreek Hill. It's that simple. It's very easy. I love this. If you don't like the bet that you see in front of you, you just go ahead and hit skip challenge. You'll get another one. A lot of people are betting against Lamar Jackson this week. And also, these are also being redeveloped a little bit. The player cards are going to have look a lot different soon, but just for right now, as you can see here, you go into the card and you can see the projected points for Lamar Jackson. You can see the game log and like how he's done recently. So even if you are more of a beginner, you're not really, you're new to challenges, you're not really sure, you can go here, you can actually see, okay, he's had 15 points, 23 points, 13 points. And then you can go look at Christian McCaffrey and say, okay, 22, 30, 21, 20. It doesn't feel like a good challenge for me, right? Like, I don't want to be a part of this. Or you may love it. You may say, I think it's a great matchup versus the Rams, Christian McCaffrey. I don't love the matchup. I'll actually take this chance. You know what I mean? And so you would come to this other side and you can place as much as you want. You don't have to, bet for the full amount. You could bet $1 and just take the $1 risk. It's totally up to you. And you can just skip through these, find ones you like. You can also search for players. So you can search names up here, Josh Jacobs. If you were looking for Josh Jacobs, you can just put Josh. So Josh Allen will come up. So you can type Jacobs. And then you'll get the other players. So it's a lot of fun. Still, other players are coming up because other Joshes, but it's a fun way to play. If we just put Jacobs, maybe, I don't know if he's considered out, like injured right now. He might not be popping up though. Let's see. Okay, there he is. Okay, so perfect example. Someone has $10 right now on DJ Moore. He's playing the Detroit Lions. Again, you look at the card. You're like, okay, he's projected around almost 15 points. He's had some big games. Obviously, Justin Fields is back, so that's why he's been playing really well lately. You look at Josh Jacobs, you say, up and down, since a lot of changes have happened with the Raiders. So, again, this is when I can go, all right, let's just show you. I'm going to place the bet. I'm a Raiders fan, so they got me with with my bias. And that's how challenges work. You can also create social challenges. This is, another favorite aspect of mine for you here. For you would be where challenges were already made and sent to you if your friends, sent them to you. If not, you can create a challenge from scratch. So you pick the sport that you want. Right now, NFL and NBA are available. We'll talk NFL because we're talking about fantasy football. Again, you go in here. You can search by any player you want. Say I want Aiden O'Connell. I just type Aiden in. Aiden O'Connell comes up. Then I go, who do I want, to see him go against? Who do I think that would be a good challenge? Now, normally you could be talking to a buddy You could be talking to a friend, someone at work, a coworker, a family member, and you know who you're putting here because you've been debating it and arguing it and discussing it. But sometimes you don't. Like sometimes you just want to wing it. You feel really good about Aiden O'Connell this week. You want to, see how he does against somebody. Who's a player that we think would be interesting right now? Okay, let's say Joe Flacco, right? So you would go Joe Flacco, you would hit continue, you would put the amount that you want, pick the side you want, put the amount that you want. And then once you do that, you go ahead and hit place bet. And then once you place a bet, here's the cool thing. This is why it's a little different than the challenges that were already created for you. You can go through your friends that you are connected to on Rival. So if say you and your friend has Rival, you both add each other as a friend and they'll pop up conveniently right here. If you don't want to do it that way, you don't have to send it to a friend. You can actually just copy the link or share it, Twitter, anywhere you want, right? Text message, send it to your family, whatever you want to do, multiple ways to share it. And so I could just copy this link and then go post it on Twitter, post on whoever wants to pick it up, maybe a Browns fan, whatever, pick it up, and then the challenge is in. And so it'll show you, someone picked it up, it'll disappear from here, and then you'll see the results later in the week when the week is over. So that's challenges. We will also look really quickly at Fantasy Bingo, which is a game a lot of people love. You can see all these cards here. All these cards are past cards. When you see a yellow card like this, it means that I won. So this is a card where I picked this roster, then this card was created for me, and my players that I picked over here hit these achievements, and I won bingo. So I won $204 on a $1 card. You pay $1, you get a bingo card, and you could win whatever the prize pool is at the time. So the prize pool right now is over $1,000. So you would get in here, you would buy a card. Let's do this together really quick. Let's just create a new roster, add a QB. And so now you'll just see all the quarterbacks for the week. And so who do I like this week? Who am I digging this week? Let's see. Let's check. Okay, how about we do it this way? I actually have an article up right now or a video. I have a video up. I do a video and I do the article as well. Not so obvious locks of the week. So we can get some of these guys into my team here. And I'll show you now. I'm going to bring it up on the screen for you really quick. Let me bring it up for you. Okay. So this blog I do every single week. That's also a video. So I do a video on YouTube. If you're subscribed to the channel, you're familiar with the video. It's a quick, short, hitting video that I do, but I also put it up in written form as well. So I have Joshua Dobbs, David Montgomery, DeAndre Hopkins, and Gerald Everett. These are my not so obvious locks of the week. For me, these are players who are not ranked inside the consensus top 10 for the week, but that I think had the upside to finish there, the real potential to finish there. And so these players I'll put into my bingo card, right? Like I already like these guys. I already have a lot of favor for them this week. So we'll make sure I get them onto my card. Joshua Dobbs, Montgomery, Hopkins, and Everett. So let's go ahead and flip back to the other screen. All right. So let's do this. Let's get Dobbs. All right. That's a quarterback. Montgomery was one of the running backs from the article. So he'll be one of my running backs that I get to pick. And then, we'll do another running back. Who do we want to go for our second running back? Since I'm a Raiders fan, let's go with Jacobs for the video's sake. Now, wide receiver, I had Hopkins as one of my not so obvious locks of the week. So we'll put him in the one slot, and then we'll have to pick one more wide receiver for the week. Let's find an interesting one. Let's find a fun one here. Michael Pittman's interesting. Nico Collins playing the Jets. No Tank Dell. Could be a good one for him. Cortland Sutton. Let's go. All right. Let's go. Justin Jefferson. Got a little stack going here with Dobbs. He's finally back, Justin Jefferson. So let's have some fun with it. And then at tight end, let's put Everett in there, like I have in my not so obvious locks of the week. And then kicker and defense. You can pick your team's favorite kicker. You can pick a kicker that you think is going to have a really good week. It's up to you. I'll go with Jason Sanders. And then for defense, flex, not defense. Why did I say defense for? For your flex, let's see, what do we want to do? We can go wide receiver. We can go running back. We can go tight end. And we will go with, should we go Derrick Henry? Have some fun with this? Let's go with Derrick Henry. All right, so we actually have 2 Titans, 2 Vikings, 1 Raider, a Charger, and a Dolphin. You submit the roster. You pick how many cards you want. So you can just do one card, $1, up to you. You can do 5, 10, 15, 100. It's totally up to you. We do buy one bingo card. When you do that, the card will populate. And now this is our bingo card. So these are the achievements that we're trying to hit for the week with these players. Now, as once it's over, you'll see the actual achievements here in the game log that your players hit. And again, these will start to light up. So if we had like a Thursday night player, some of these might be lit up right now already so that you would know you hit on some of these, squares already. Sometimes I like to do that. I do like a Thursday night card. I do a Sunday card, do a Monday night card. Sometimes I do, one lineup, 5 cards. Sometimes I do 5 different lineups. I mix it up. It really just depends on, how you want to play it, how you want to approach it, how you want to strategize for it. But it's a lot of fun. Again, you'll see it like this. If you didn't win, you'll see the green boxes, which are ones you hit on. You'll see it in the game log, like which players hit those squares. But you'll see that there's nothing yellow because there's no line that I actually hit on this one. So I didn't win on this card. You can win by just, it tells you here too. If you go to prize pool, it'll show you diagonally or whatever, 5 in a row and then 4 in a corner. And it tells you how the prize pools are split up, all that kind of stuff. So it's really fun. Again, I have a lot of fun with this. I enjoyed it. It's a totally different thing, totally unique to Rival Fantasy. So I highly suggest you check it out. And then, of course, challenges. Again, so like this is another good one, right? Like Jalen Hurts versus the Cowboys, Lamar Jackson versus the Rams. You can go on there, and again, you don't have to take the full thing. You can even put more than what's there. Say you feel really confident about it. I want this guy. I want this bet, this $3 bet plus more, right? You could do that. So you would just do it like that. It's very simple. CJ Stroud playing the Jets, Lamar Jackson. So this is a lot of fun. And for those of you who are watching and you also like NBA is also available. There's no games today right now, or there's no games right now, but if there was games, there would be challenges here as well. So you could do that. It's a lot of fun. And these will populate typically 7 days out. So as it'll be each week basically. You'll see it like that. So let's get off of here. Let's go ahead and get back to the solo screen. All right, cool. So that is some of the challenges, some fantasy bingo. We'll keep revisiting that. We'll keep looking at it. I do want to look at injuries as well. Some of the injuries for the week that were significant. Obviously, Lamar Jackson was, sick. I'm sure he's going to play. I don't think that's an issue at all. With Trevor Lawrence, I did see Ian Rappaport say that his game status will be determined by how his practices go. And I'm assuming he's a game time decision. Short week. He's dealing with an ankle sprain. That was what Ian Rappaport said. So we'll see. Again, these are going to be more important. Pay attention to a lot of these, on Sunday morning, 11, 12 o'clock. Pay attention to what's coming out at that point. Derek Carr looks like he's going to play. Derek Carr has, to some, people maybe don't want him to play, but he's going to play. I think he's going to play. He's overcome so many injuries. Nothing is slowing this guy down. So Derek Carr looks like he's going to play. Geno Smith is beat up, but I don't think he was on the injury report last time I checked. So I think he's good to go this week as well. So those are some of the quarterbacks that were beat up. I do see Duarte here in the comments. Dropped a question for us. Let me go ahead and just pull that comment up on the screen for us. 1 second. Okay. All right. Duarte 5656 asks Amari Cooper or Brandon Cooks in PPR. So this is an interesting one. Normally you would just think Amari Cooper, right? Amari Cooper is the elite wide receiver out of this group. Brandon Cooks has been doing well. He's not elite. He's had some really good elite seasons, but you don't really look at him as an elite wide receiver at this point, right? He's like their second wide receiver for the Cowboys, third wide receiver. Sometimes it depends on the game, but Cooper has actually been in concussion protocol. So that's why this is a solid question. Last time I checked, I haven't seen an update. Let me just check really quick what the latest news is on Amari Cooper before I answer this, Duarte, because I don't know if they've cleared him. I'm assuming because you're asking they have, but let me just double check. Yeah, he cleared his protocol. Okay, so he is set to play versus the Jags. My thing is this. If he's cleared and it was a concussion, it wasn't like a hamstring injury or, one of these injuries that are very easy to re-aggravate. I know concussions can be re-aggravated just by, a player getting hit again, and it happens a lot of times where players come back from concussions and, especially like this right now, right? Like some people are going to go, did he come back too quick? Is he forcing it? Like, is he coming back too early and he's really, susceptible to being in another concussion very quickly, which would be unfortunate? Definitely possible. Then on the flip side, when we look at Brandon Cooks playing Philly, playing the Eagles this week, and he's been, he's had 32 points, 7 points, 17 points, 17 points. So he's been playing really well. And so this goes to one of those situations. Do I go with the hot hand, lesser of an elite player, right? Not an elite player, not elite, wide receiver necessarily, but he's been in a hot hand. He's been doing really well. Do I go with that guy, or do I go with the guy who is the elite player, who has a quarterback issues that were been going on down there, and now he's dealing with a concussion, all these kind of things? I look at it this way. Joe Flacco played pretty decent last week, right? Like, he looked pretty good, better than I thought he would. I believe he's the starter this week. So I would say this. If I'm doing this, I'm starting Amari Cooper. That's just where I'm at. I'm starting Amari Cooper. Duarte, he's the more elite player. He's the better of the two. Joe Flacco is definitely going to be able to get him the ball. I thought he wasn't going to play this game, honestly. I thought it was going to be an all Elijah Moore game. But with him back, I like it. I like Cooper. So I think that you'll see him moving up people's rankings now that he cleared for the week. So if you're just looking at rankings, I know it's confusing. Cook is probably higher in a lot of rankings because of the health concerns and because Cook has been, playing well. But I just think that I'm not going to start Brandon Cooks over Cooper. I understand that he's been hotter. Now, if you want to go with the hot hand right now, I get it. If you're concerned that Cooper is going to, reconcuss in the game, it happens. I know it sounds weird, but it does happen. If you think that's going to happen and you want to stay away from it, you want the safe points, you feel Cook is more safe, you could definitely do that. But I just think that Jacksonville, they got ate up last week, right? They got ate up last week by Jake Browning. So there's no reason why Joe Flacco can't do it. So yeah, I think Cooper's gonna have a good game. I think Cooper will be fine. More likely to get a touchdown in my eyes than Cook. So I would go with Cooper on this one. Duarte, good luck with that. Mawa Lahawa, Devonta Smith, or Nico Collins. This is a good one. This is a really good one. I love both of these players, as you guys know if you've been watching the show for this season. I love both players. Smith is playing Dallas, so considered a tough matchup in terms of secondary, pass defense. But another guy who's been on fire. Week 8, 23 points. Week 9, 14 points. Then a bye week. Then week 11, 16 points. Week 12, 24 points. Week 13 against San Francisco, not an easy defense to play against, 25 points. Just on fire. Devonta Smith's been on fire. On the flip side, Collins has been playing well, right? Like, even better the last 2 weeks. If we just look at the last 2 weeks, 23 points against Jacksonville. And again, that's why I say start Cooper, Duarte. And then versus Denver, 34 points. And that's not even the easiest matchup. Denver's actually, got a decent secondary. So he went crazy last week. He's playing the Jets this week, though. Now you go, tough defense. Tough defense, Neil. So, Mawa, I would really like you to be able to start both of these guys. It sucks that you're in a position where you can't start both. I don't know if you're still watching, if you could flex one. What's the rest of your team look like? Because I personally, for me, these are two almost like top 15 wide receivers this week, top 20-ish. I would love to get both in the lineup. Let me know who else you're starting. But if I have to choose between the two, I would likely, I'm thinking I would lean Devonta Smith. Although it's tough, man. I just think that, the Jets defense could cause some issues for CJ Stroud. I'm more confident in Jalen Hurts not having those issues that Stroud could potentially run into as a rookie. But I would love you to be able to start both of these guys, man. I would love to know who else you're playing and why you can't get them both in the lineup. Also, Tank Dell not being there, like, is that really going to affect things? I don't think it will. I think that, he'll be fine both ways. I just would love for you to get both in your lineup. If I had to pick one, I'm going to go Devonta Smith. Devin Jones, hey, man. Hey, what's up? Appreciate you guys. By the way, everyone in the chat right now, I appreciate you guys for watching. Please like this video. Help us with the YouTube algorithm. I really appreciate that greatly if you guys can do that. It takes 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds for you to just hit like. That's it. And bounce from that. And then also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. It means a lot. Again, another thing, it means nothing to you guys. It takes 2 seconds for you. It's really fast. Hit the subscribe button. For me, it means the world. For Rival, help us build in this community. We really appreciate you guys. And feel free to chop it up in the chat. answer other people's questions, ask as many questions as you want. We're huge on community here. Don't feel limited. Don't feel like you're bothering me. Don't feel like, any of that kind of stuff. Chop it up in the chat. We want to talk about everything in the chat. I'm actually going to drop a poll really quick in the chat. I'm curious what you guys think. You guys are asking me questions. I'm going to ask you a question. This week, Isaiah Pacheco is out for the Chiefs. So I'm dropping a poll right now in the chat. I want to know, will you guys start Jerick McKinnon in your flex this week in week 14, or would you not? Just a quick yes or no. I'm curious what you guys, what your headspace is at with Jerick McKinnon. All right, so Devin Jones's question. Sorry for the sidetrack there. All right, your question. Nico Collins, Chris Olave, or Tony Pollard, half PPR. All right. Again, another bunch of great players. I hate when I hear you guys having to bench some of these players. It bums me out because these guys, again, are all great options. Like, they're all really good players. They are probably all going to have good weeks for you. I know Olave was dealing with some stuff, but I think he was a flu. He wasn't like injured or nothing, I don't believe. So it was just kind of a sickness. I think he's fine. I would still monitor it just to make sure, because sometimes with these guys, when they're sick, things are weird, right? Like, sometimes you think things are going to be fine, and then they just, the flu knocks them out for the week. It's possible, right? Like, they miss a lot of practices. Their body has to recuperate. We all know, like, you get the flu, sometimes you lose a bunch of weight, you get dehydrated, things are weird. You got to kind of rebuild. And also, if you come back too quick off of stuff like that, you might get injured, right? So I would just keep an eye on it just in case he doesn't play for some reason. It's very possible that he doesn't. I'm trying to see the latest report if there was anything anything certified about whether he is or not. But again, Chris Olave is another guy who's a top 15 wide receiver, a top 20 wide receiver. I want him in my lineup. But because he's had the flu and he's kind of sick, I would go Nico Collins over him. Then we think about Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is a guy who also has been catching on as of late. A lot of people were concerned with, we had questions earlier in the year, like people were benching, Pollard when he was having those struggles, those little 9-point weeks, 7-point week, 8-point weeks. People were getting really concerned because he started on fire and then he kind of tailed off. I would say this. I'm starting Collins here over both these guys. He's the healthy player. Stroud has been on fire. Collins has been on fire. Pollard has been doing really well. I'm a little concerned about the defense he's facing in Philly. They have a pretty good rush defense, so that would be my differentiator here, and it's half PPR. That kind of, I don't know. My thing with the half PPR is like, so you would kind of lean a little bit like running back with that because it's less points for the receptions, but Pollard hasn't, the good games that he's been having haven't necessarily been, because of just rushing, right? Like, it's been a lot of passing stuff too. He's had games with 6 receptions, 4 receptions, 3 receptions, and those start to add up. In half PPR, they don't mean as much. They still matter. But I would lean Collins here first. I would monitor Olave. If Olave gets the green light, I still would lean Collins because Olave also doesn't have an easy matchup. So between the sickness, the tougher matchup, I would lean Collins. Now, if Brian was here, he might say Olave. He always says Olave. Even though he's a Texans fan, he might still say Olave. I don't know. We'd have to ask him. But I'm going to lean Collins here, Devin. Appreciate the question. Thank you for joining also. And, of course, like I said, guys, please hit that like button. Really appreciate the support. And hit subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe. All right, next question. Actually, Mawa answered my question. He said, I have Mahomes, A-Chain, Robinson, Chase, and Jacobs. Damn, you are stacked. You are stacked. You are definitely fantasy playoffs bound if it hasn't started already for you. This is a stacked team, man. This is a really good team. So, yeah, you're good everywhere, right? Like, you have all these perfect, like, it's saying to bench any of these guys is just ridiculous at this point, right? So that brings us back to your question then, Devonta Smith or Nico Collins, because I'm not going to tell you to bench these other guys. And I'm not going to tell you to bench. No, they're all, man, you are stacked, my friend. Yeah, I will go with your question here. I would lean Devonta Smith. And again, it kills me to say this just because I love both of these guys and I think they're both going to have a good week. But I would lean Devonta Smith. I trust Jalen Hurts a little more right now against these, late in the season, these matchups get really weird. And we haven't seen Stroud struggle lately. It hasn't been, it's been pretty easy for him. He's had some he didn't do amazing versus Denver. So there's a little knock there. And that's a tougher defense, right? So that's my thing is he faced a Denver defense, which is pretty tough. It's not elite, but it's pretty tough. The Jets defense is elite. They're arguably one of the best defenses in the league. So I would have to back off Nico in that case if you have a Devonta Smith question, with him. So that's where I'm at with that. No problem, man. Of course, for sure. Oh, you love rival. Oh, hey, appreciate you, man. Have you been doing season long, or did you do like just challenges and bingo and stuff like that, or are you doing actual season long as well? Let me know. I'd love to hear it. And of course, for any of you guys who are playing season long or challenges, any of these things, definitely drop us with feedback. Hit us with the feedback, what you think, your thoughts. If you have any questions, you can actually follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, any of those places at Rival Fantasy. And we'll, comment, DM us, whatever DMs are open to you guys. Love to know your thoughts, what you want to see, what were your favorite things that we had, features you'd love to see added. We have so much coming with Rival Fantasy, guys. Like, I just want you to know that, like, if you're thinking about, moving your season long team somewhere else, or even if you don't want to move your team, but you just want to try a new league, try it on Rival Fantasy. Because I promise you, there's so much fun stuff coming down the line. We listen to the community. We listen to what you guys want. We're all fantasy diehards, right? Like, this isn't, how do I put this? This isn't a fantasy site that's not run by fantasy players, if that makes sense. Like, we're sports diehards, we're football diehards, we're fantasy diehards. So we use it, we play it, and we want it to be what everything we want, right? Like, so we know what you guys want as well, but we always like hearing from you guys. But thank you, Devin, for saying that it's your first year doing it, that you're loving it. We really appreciate that. Good luck to you this week as well, man. I hope you have a good fantasy week. And guys, please, when you drop these questions in here and we answer them for you and we talk about it, I love for you guys to come back the next live stream and tell us how you did. Or leave it on a comment on one of the YouTube videos. Let us know how you did, because we care, man. We want to hear. I don't want to just answer questions and then never see you again. I want to know how you did. How's your playoffs going? Or how'd your team play? How'd you do last week? What's the situation? I'm interested in what's going on. So don't just drop the question and dip. Let me know, because that's why I said this is a community and we love what we're building here. It's a lot of fun. All right, Pavan Gadella. Hope I said your name right. I apologize if I didn't. I tried my best. Pick 2 PPR. Romeo Dobbs, JSN, AJ Dillon, Zay Jones. Thanks, bro. No problem, of course. Hope you're doing well, Pavan, as well. Again, I hope I'm saying your name right. I apologize if I'm not. So this is an interesting one. You're giving us 2 options. PPR, which is my preferred favorite. Now, I'm not a big fan of standard. Are you guys a big fan of standard? Standard leagues? Let me see how that poll's doing. Let me see. Oh, man. I'm kind of surprised right now. That poll is not going how I expected. I thought I would see a little more Jerick McKinnon love from you guys. I thought I would see it. It's not looking good right now. Jerick McKinnon isn't getting the support I thought he would. My bad. But I understand. Like, in the fantasy playoffs, it's a little risky. But with Jerick McKinnon, like, if you guys remember last season, he caught on late in the season and did great. But Checo out, they got to turn somewhere. So, it's definitely a lot of people are going to be faced with that question. Picking up Jerick McKinnon and potentially starting him this week. So I just wanted to kind of get the pulse of the room or the Rival Fantasy community and see what you guys are doing in terms of, Jerick McKinnon. So, all right, pick 2 PPR, Romeo Dobbs, JSN, AJ Dillon, Zay Jones. So 2 Packers on the list here. We also got Zay Jones and JSN. So if you guys have been watching, I don't know if Pavan's been watching, but I'm a big fan of a lot of these players here on this list. AJ Dillon, I'm not a big fan of. He's the guy who every time Aaron Jones is out, I think A.J. Dillon for sure is going to have a really good week. He's for sure going to go off. It never happens. It never happens. It never does. Like, he'll get you 10 points. Like, he'll get you that in PPR. But that's like it. If he gets it to you. If he gets you to 10, you're like, thankfully he got his 10 points, because that's like the most you can expect. So, in this case, for me, like, he's an easy one to likely take out of the scenario for me. I'm just not, for me, there's no upside, right? So I guess I should word it this way. If you're looking for a floor of 10 points, if that's what you want, like, you want to play it safe this week, you just want, an easy 10 points, sure. I mean, you can go that route. He's playing it, and again, I know you're probably saying, like, but he's playing a bad defense, Neil. I get it. I say that all the time too. I always say it. I always say, man, AJ Dillon, he's playing a soft defense. He should do good today. Aaron Jones is out, this, that. And it never happens. It never happens. But you also have some other situations here, right? You got JSN. He's playing the 49ers. He played the 49ers a couple of weeks ago. Didn't do so great. So you have that situation where I understand you're a little bit concerned about it. And then you have Zay Jones, who, you know, Trevor Lawrence is a little, Trevor Lawrence is a little beat up. How is that going to play out? He's playing Cleveland, a tough D. So I'm going to take him out of the equation for me as well. So for me, Pavon, I'm going Romeo Doubs and JSN. I'm going Romeo Doubs and JSN. Jordan Love has been playing pretty well. The Giants are a team that Doubs can play well against. He can score against. I know they have a lot of weapons there. I know their wide receiver group is very solid, and Doubs has kind of slowed down as the other guys have picked up, as Reed and Watson have picked up. But I'm still a fan of Doubs, so I would go Doubs and JSN here. JSN, I understand like there's a little concern with the matchup and everything, but he's been playing really well. He's a guy who, going into the season, I thought if DK and Tyler Lockett are healthy, I can't trust JSN, and now I'm to the point where if DK and Tyler Lockett are healthy, I can trust JSN. That's where I'm at. That's how well he's played. We're talking about a guy who last week had 11 targets, 7 receptions against the Cowboys in Dallas. So yeah, he didn't get a lot of fantasy points necessarily, 13 fantasy points. I mean, that's a decent game. But come on, man, like 11 targets, 7 receptions, 62 yards. If you would have had a touchdown, you would have thought he did really well. And that's against the Cowboys. So yeah, I know San Fran is considered, a defense that is pretty decent, but I'm not that afraid of them. So for me, it's Doubs and JSN, Pavon. And I'm curious, man, how else does the rest of the team look? The rest of the team got really solid. Rest of the group, just this is the only concern or what? Douglas Sears says, hey man, hope you're having a good night. I hope you're having a good night as well, Douglas. Thank you for, returning to the show. I really appreciate it. I love when you guys return and chop it up with us here. Again, like this video, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. He said he needs a flex PPR, Doubs, London, Ford, JSN, AJ Dillon. Lots to choose from here. So just one, we can only pick one. Out the gate, AJ Dillon's off my list. I don't know if you've been listening, Douglas, but he's off my list, man. So that's easy. Push him to the side. Then we got Ford. I'm a big fan of Ford. I do like Ford a lot. He's playing Jacksonville, okay defense. He's been playing pretty consistent, right? Like he's a double-digit guy. He's a double-digit, 10-plus point guy every single week. You feel secure in that. You feel safe in that. I think there's since he started getting a workload, I mean, okay, week 1, he didn't do anything really, right? Like 2 fantasy points. After that, every single week he's had 10-plus points except in week 8. So he's as consistent as it gets. I'm not worried about the matchup. I'm not worried about who he's playing against. Jerome Ford is Jerome Ford. So he's pretty consistent. So him, AJ Dillon, a little similar this week, but I would still roll Ford over AJ Dillon. So it still keeps Dillon at the back for me. Then we've talked about Doubs and JSN. It's funny you guys had like 2 of the same players or 3 of the same players. You and Pavon had 3 of the same players that I just spoke about. So the only player we just talked about Ford, the only other player who's different in this list is Drake London. So Drake London is playing the Bucks. That's a sweet matchup. Bucks are a very sweet matchup. So I get it though. With London, you're like, he's killing you, right? Like he has some really good weeks. He has some really bad weeks. And you're just like, what's the deal? What's the deal with this guy? And it's not his fault, man. It's really not. And last week he played the Jets. Super tough defense. So we're not going to hold that against him. Other than the Jets game, any other game that he's really had a good amount of targets in, he's been pretty solid, right? So even with the quarterback issues and all that kind of stuff, he's been pretty good still. So for me, I'm going London. Douglas. I just think that he's too good. He's too talented. He needs to bounce back from a tough week last week. Don't hold the Jets game against him. Don't hold it against him. And if you look at the Bucks, right? If you look at the games the Bucks have played in so far, Douglas, and you see, just look at the recent games, right? Like they played the Panthers last week. Jonathan Mingo finally started getting going a little bit. DJ Chark had a little bit. Those guys aren't Drake London skill level, right? So we're not going to necessarily compare them to him, but they're not the same level. Michael Pittman the week before, 10 receptions, 107 yards, more of a Drake London caliber player. So he had a really good game. Go back a little further. The 49ers played the Bucks and just Ayuk went crazy, 156 yards, 1 touchdown. Debo got a little bit involved. Kittle had a good game that game. So the Bucks are a team that can get beat through the air, plenty. And when we're talking about a player as talented as Drake London, it's definitely gonna, probably be a good game for him. So I would lean Drake out of this group. I know it's a little scary just because especially when you look at last week and you think about how things have gone, but trust me, I would go Drake London. Go back to the Texans game. I know we're talking about CJ Stroud, totally different quarterback level, but Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell, all went for over 100 yards. 3 different players all went for over 100 yards. Even Nico Collins had 50 yards and a touchdown. So Bucks are, crazy beatable through the air. So Drake London should do well. Drake London should have a good game. I'm sure he wants to bounce back from that, terrible game last week. So he should be good there. Okay, I already did that one. Pavan said, trust in Clyde Edwards-Helaire over McKinnon based on Reed's words. So yeah, definitely McKinnon hasn't been getting a lot of work. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been getting more work than McKinnon. My thing is this, man. I don't like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not a Clyde Edwards-Helaire guy. He's an A.J. Dillon for me. He just doesn't get me excited. He doesn't do anything for me. The team hasn't done anything to prove that, he's like their guy. He totally fell off the face of the earth once Pacheco got going and hasn't had a lot of work. Even just there's nothing to hang your hat on there, man. There's no upside for me. I'd much rather have McKinnon. It's such a Reed thing to do where, you don't use a guy a whole lot the whole year. He's just been kind of in the tuck. He's had some okay games, right? Like that one game he had 2 touchdowns. Whenever he gets a touchdown, the game's okay, right? Like, because he gets a few receiving yards, 20, 30 yards, a couple touchdowns, touchdown here or there, and he gets going. But in general, the upside is just so much higher with McKinnon. And that's where I'm at. So if you want to rely on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, go for it. But it's just not my thing. He's not my kind of player that I would, want to bank on. You're in the fantasy playoffs right now, or you're in the thick of it. Like this week, maybe the week that settles whether you get in or not. There's just no way I could put Clyde Edwards-Helaire in my lineup. And I could be totally wrong, right? Like he could go off, but I just don't see it. I just do not see it. He's just not my type of player. I have no confidence in him. And McKinnon has that passing game ability where it's one catch and he's scoring touchdowns, right? Like that playmaker ability. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not really the playmaker type. He's more of like the plotter, get the goal line carry or, here and there. But McKinnon, 120-yard catch for a touchdown or 120-yard, end around for a touchdown. Like that's so there. And again, if you look at last season, the results speak for themselves, in my opinion. Like he got hot towards the end of the season, did really well. And so I would lean more on McKinnon. And I have a bias for him. Like I like him, but I just don't like Clyde Edwards-Helaire at all. Dirty Sanchez. Sup, brother? What's up, man? Full PPR. Start 3. Ooh, give me a little more than the 1 or 2 option here. Start 3. PPR, wide receiver Hopkins, Puka, Cooks, Ridley, Downs, and Lockett. This is a stacked group, my friend. You got yourself quite the group of wide receivers here. So it's going to depend here, right? Like how you want to approach this. There are so many different ways to approach this group. I have Hopkins as one of my not so obvious locks of the week, which means he's a player for me that I feel is not ranked inside the top 10 on the consensus rankings in most places, but I'm a big fan of. I think he can finish top 10 this week. That's how the not so obvious locks of the week work. So for me, Will Levis has really opened up things for Hopkins, and Hopkins is clearly the best receiving weapon in Tennessee. They're playing Miami, who gives up points. Here's the thing. I know people are going to say, what about Jalen Ramsey, though? Hopkins is going to be able to neutralize some of that. The thing is, if you look at the Dolphins games, the elite wide receivers get off. Like they're going to have good games. I understand Jalen Ramsey is super good, but Hopkins is a touchdown machine. The probability of him having a touchdown versus Miami is very high. You put him on the main stage, he's just one of those guys, right? So I expect Hopkins to do really well. So he's in my list here. He'll make one of these spots. Puka, it's been so weird with the Rams, right? Like Cooper Kupp situation's been strange. 1 second he's hurt, the next second he's not hurt, or he's beat up, but he's still playing. and he's made it very muddy for us in terms of what to expect. Like last week, you would have asked me, I would have said, I'm not starting Cooper Kupp. Playing Cleveland, he's been hurt. It's been weird. I'd rather stay away from him. Now they're playing Baltimore this week, another good defense. He did decent last week, though, Kupp. But Puka did outplay him. So Puka has been, kind of back on his thing, man. So Puka's been, a really hot hand. So we're looking at him definitely as a flex consideration here for you, man. And then we got Cooks. I talked about Cooks earlier. I like him. I'm happy for him. I like that he's been doing really well. He's on a hot streak, playing a kind of a, defense that he can exploit and beat. The thing is, when you look at the rest of your guys on your list, we got Calvin Ridley here. He's playing Cleveland. So again, this is kind of a defense that I avoid. Trevor Lawrence situation, I would stay away from him. So he's off my list for you. Josh Downs, I'm a big fan of. He's playing Cincinnati. He hasn't done much lately, so I would not play him as well. So we're kind of eliminating guys here, right? So we eliminate Ridley, we eliminate Downs. And then the last one on your list is Lockett, who I've been talking about JSN today. And the reason I've been talking about him is because he comes up in a lot of questions. And the thing is like, I once avoided JSN when players like Lockett and DK were healthy. But now I'm leaning JSN over guys like Lockett. So for me in this situation, it really comes down to, do I start Lockett or do I start Cooks? Considering the matchup, considering how things have gone, I would roll Hopkins, Puka, Cooks. I would sit Ridley, Downs, and Lockett. Dak Prescott's been going off. Geno's a little hurt. These are the things that I'm using to differentiate why I'm choosing Cooks over these guys. Playing Philly, we know how this game goes, man. The Cowboys Philly games are ridiculous. They're nasty. And so I really like Cooks, opportunity in this one as well. So Hopkins, Puka, Cooks for me. That's where I'm going, Dirty. No problem, man. Of course. I appreciate you as well, dude. I appreciate all of you guys in here. Make sure you hit this video, you hit like, and you subscribe. It takes 2 seconds for you guys. It means everything to me. I can't appreciate your support enough. Usually we do the live streams every Sunday at 11:30 a.m., but scheduling conflicts came up, so I wanted to still speak with you guys. I wanted to still connect with you guys, answer your questions. And so I'm doing this for you guys. I really enjoy our conversations. Again, I know to some of you, it's just drop a question and dip. For me, it's connecting with you guys, connecting with, diehard sports fans, connecting with the fantasy football community. I love it. And so I appreciate you as much as you appreciate me helping you out here, man. So thank you. Pavan also said rest of his squad, 3 wide receivers, 2 flex PPR, Stroud, Kenneth Walker, CH, JJ Waddle, Higgins, Kincaid, now JSN, Dobbs, Santos. Wondering if Aaron Jones is out, if I should flex Dylan over CEH. Okay, I hear you there, man. I hear you. Aaron Jones has not been declared out that I'm aware of. Let me just double check. I don't think he's been declared out. Let's see. They list him as questionable. The old questionable, Pavan, the old questionable. Let's see. Yeah, it's a knee injury too. And he did practice for the second straight day the other day. So he's practicing. Man, it's the same injury that he's been dealing with. Prior to this, he has not been practicing. Now that he is practicing, it's one of those things where, like, do you want to risk, him back his first week, potentially re-injuring that if he does play? I would rather not. So if I'm thinking between Dylan or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm definitely going Dylan. And that tells you a lot, Pavan, because I just said how much I, have struggled with AJ Dillon, right? And like every time I think he's going to do good, he doesn't. The other thing with that is, he's been kind of injured also, but I don't think that he's not going to start. So keep a close eye on it. Monitor these guys. I would start AJ Dillon over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I just don't have a lot of confidence in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you do, go with your gut for sure. Always go with your gut over what, anyone else tells you. Because at the end of the day, this is what I always say. Use what we're saying as a tool, right? Take the advice, think about it, consider it, look at it as kind of like a research, tool for you. But ultimately, when you play fantasy football, this is my thing. Like when you play, if you lose, you want to lose with the guys you wanted to go with, that you believed in, that you felt right about, right? So I would never want you to switch out somebody that I talked you out of when your gut says the other guy. So ultimately, like if you like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, don't let me talk you out of him. I just am not a fan of him. I don't think that, the Chiefs believe in him like that. And they're only going to him because Pacheco is hurt. And so I think that they're going to use other players, right? Like Kelsey can go off. Jerick McKinnon can catch the fire the backfield. They may not need to score, a ton of points and turn to Clyde Edwards-Helaire for them. I love Rashee Rice has really been coming on. It's the Bills, right? And so we all know their defense has been trash. And they're going to need to score a lot of points. But, Kelsey could go off. Rashee Rice can go off. McKinnon can go off. Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't, necessarily needed, right? He's just a guy they're going to hand the ball off to a few times. He's not Pacheco. He's not Pacheco by any means. Pacheco, gets tons of great carries. No one runs harder than the guy. He's to me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the opposite of Pacheco. But again, if you feel it, do it. Go down on your sword, right? If you're going to fall on your sword. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't do it. But I think with A.J. Dillon, if Aaron Jones plays, then it's where you go, maybe I should play Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You know what I mean? Because you don't have Aaron Jones, right? From what I understand. So that's where I'm at with that. But you got a really good team here, man, a really solid team. Stroud has been going crazy. Waddle has been good. Higgins hopefully continues to do a little better here. Kincaid's been well. So, yeah, man, you got a good squad. Let me see what you said here. Yeah, I've been struggling with matchup versus opportunities. Of course, man. Of course, absolutely. I'm sure you're doing this well, man. Are you in the playoffs? Or is your league not playoff set yet? You got a good squad, but also one that I know creates that matchup versus opportunity issue for you, which happens a lot, man. I understand. I totally get it. It's a good squad, though, man. Duarte also said, pick one, Raheem Mostert, Rachaad White, or Travis Etienne. This is another group of running backs coming into the season. People probably liked Etienne the most, but White and Raheem have been doing great, right? I think when you look at this team, Raheem is a little beat up. They're playing the Titans. He's been given a lot of work to A-Chain. He's sort of getting. He's still been doing a lot. He's still been doing good, but I think when he's questionable and he's beat up and he's a little hurt, I know he did return to practice, and he should be fine. And I don't think that, he's not going to do well. But when I think about Rachaad White, man, he's been crushing it. So I would definitely do White over Raheem. Then your other player was who? Etienne? Yeah, Etienne, I'm telling you, man, the Lawrence situation troubles me a little bit, and they're playing Cleveland. So while I love Etienne as well, I'm not going to bet against White, who has an easier matchup. So for me, it's White. But again, you have 3 good running backs here. You're kind of set for the playoffs. This is really good. I'd love to know who else you have. Did you talk about the rest of your lineup anywhere? No, you haven't told us who else you have. This is a good group of running backs, man. So to only get to pick one sucks. But if you had the opportunity to pick 2, you have other good players here. But I would go White if I had to pick one out of the trio. But I'm gonna laugh my ass off needing this W. Oh, for sure, man. That's tough. But again, man, what I like about this is you're clearly in a competitive league, right? You're not in a 6-team league. Sometimes you see and no knock. If you're in a 6-team league, no knock to you. But people hit you up I need to start one of these guys, and they're all stars, and you're like, damn, what do I do? But for your case, you got really tough choices to make, man, because you drafted well. I'm sure you've been doing waivers well, and then you're not in a small league, so it's tough, man. I hope you get the W. Please come back next week. I hope you're subscribed. Come back next week. Don't forget about us. I'd love to know, how you did. I hope you make it in, man. I really do. Sending positive vibes your way. Hopefully let the fantasy gods look down on you, man, and take care of you this week. But you got a good squad. I'm sure you'll do well. Duarte, thank you, sir. Of course, man. Thank you. Banana 52, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams. What's up with the plural S's here on these guys? Or Travis Etienne. PPR, pick 2 for my flex this week. I don't know if you know Banana, but I'm a Raider fan. You're making things difficult on me. Do I put on my Raiders glasses? And be biased here? or do I, find, somewhere in my heart for these other guys? I just talked about Travis Etienne a second ago and my concerns with him. So that should be kind of clear to you, right? Like before I even knew that you had Raiders on here, I'm concerned about his matchup and just his health, his quarterback's health, all kinds of things. So my concerns there. So my biases aside there. Joe Mixon, got to be honest. I thought I was going to be concerned about him because of the quarterback situation, right? I also talked about this earlier in the week. I want to say it was on maybe my Risers episode. I talked about the fact that I was concerned about this team when they lost Joe Burrow. I thought I want nothing to do with Chase. I want nothing to do with Mixon. Like if I can back off these guys, if I can trade them, if I can move them, like I wanted to. Because I thought, like, who the hell is Jake Browning? He's no Joe Burrow. Can this offense really move with him? Will defenses respect them enough? And then he did it. He's one of those guys who came in and did it. He did what you needed him to do. So Joe Mixon goes off. He went off and had 30 points last week in PPR. So a guy I thought I wasn't going to trust became a guy I could trust a little more. He is playing Indy this week. Fair matchup, not bad. And then Josh Jacobs is playing the Vikings. Tougher matchup. Josh Jacobs has also been playing pretty well, even with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. So another situation, very similar situation, right? Like these guys come in, you think they can't be as good as a starter or shouldn't be. And then they come in, the team still moves. The team still moves with or without the starting quarterback. So Aiden O'Connell comes in, becomes the new starting quarterback because Jimmy G is benched now. And I mean, we see the new coach too. Antonio Pierce has been feeding Josh Jacobs every single game. There really hasn't been a game where they didn't turn to him and hand him that ball 20 plus times a game, right? So he's getting fed. So you got that. So clearly I'm a fan of Joe Mixon. I'm a fan of Josh Jacobs. The last name I haven't spoke about on this list yet is Davante Adams. Being a Raider fan, I'm a Davante Adams fan. I'm a Davante Adams fan. You also know that I believe elite wide receivers are going to get the job done. I don't care about who the quarterback is. I hardly care about who the matchup is. He's still getting tons of targets, similar to the way that I just spoke about Josh Jacobs. New head coaches, new quarterback, and they're saying, hey, Josh Jacobs is our man at running back. Adams is our man at wide receiver. We're going to feed our best players. That's how we're going to win games. That gives us our best chance. Antonio Pierce is trying to win a coaching job. Aiden O'Connell's trying to win his quarterback job. The only way to do so is to feed your best players. The Raiders are coming off a bye week. So I would say this. I would say that I think Josh Jacobs and Joe Mixon are probably your safest plays. If you want to just play it safe, Josh Jacobs and Mixon are probably safer. But Davante Adams is kind of close. But if you're looking for just play it safe, it's Josh Jacobs and Joe Mixon. If you're like, I really want some upside, maybe you can find a way to squeeze Davante Adams in there. But I think it's Jacobs and Mixon, man. I think it's Jacobs and Mixon. Oh, here you commented here. I had Mixon and Jacobs in my lineup for flex, so we thought that's the best route to go, man. That's the safest route to go. It's hard for me to say bench Davante Adams, and not just because I'm a Raider fan, right? Because it's hard for me to say bench elite wide receivers, elite route runners, guys who are the best at what they do. In a game that could potentially be a shootout, right? In a game that, Justin Jefferson's on the other side, Addison's on the other side, Hawkinson's on the other side. They can put up points, man. So like Davante Adams will be needed and probably forced a lot of targets. So it's hard for me to say that, but when you can only pick two, I got to go with my two favorites in the options. You know what I mean? Just logically. So Jacobs and Mixon is where I'm going. So, and my receivers are Collins and Allen. Yeah, see, you got a good team here, man. There's no way I'm going to tell you to bench Allen, and there's no way I'm going to tell you to bench Collins. So, the Devontae Collins one is interesting simply because Collins is playing the Jets. So it's kind of like, are you worried that Jets defense is going to get to the Texans, right? Like, can they rattle Stroud? Can Stroud turn to different places like Noah Brown? If Dalton Schultz is playing, I don't think he is. I think Brevin Jordan's playing as a starter, but will he turn other places? This is going to be like a slugfest, like a really grinded out kind of game. When they played some tougher defenses, it's kind of been like that, right? Like Carolina, the Saints, certain teams like that, right? Like tough defenses, Baltimore, but that was week 1. But still, like when they play some of those teams, Stroud can struggle a little bit. It can be a little more difficult. It's not like a, go crazy fast like when they play Denver or Jacksonville or the Steelers earlier this season, the Colts, right? So that's the only thing to me that's more of a question than Jacobs Mixon. Jacobs Mixon locked in, Allen locked in. It comes down to like Collins, Devontae, right? So to me, that's more of a question. And then you're going to say, well, hey, man, Collins has been going off. Adams hasn't. I'm riding the hot hand. You know what I mean? So I can understand that logic. Meaning, being a biased Raider fan, being that they're playing the Vikings, and I think they can score points, and they're not as much of a threat on defense as the Jets are, I would probably go Adams. But totally, Collins is the man now with Tank Dell out, and Stroud is a baller. He's an absolute stud. And Collins is a stud. He had 34 points last week, 23 the week before. I'm not going to tell you to sit him. Like if it's in your gut, start him. You know what I mean? And I would have a conflict with this all week if I was you. I get it. Like it's a tough question, but you're stacked, man. Like I don't think you can go wrong here, if that makes sense, man. I think you got the dub. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's a way to like. There's no there's no roster decision here that you can make that you can be like, man, I shouldn't have did that. Like I made this the wrong move. Like you have everyone's the right move. It's just, pick your poison, pick your weapon here. And if you roll with Collins, totally logical, hot hand, lighten it up. The only thing I try to do is I ask myself, how can I differentiate them? And that's how I can differentiate Adams and Collins is the matchup, defense they're playing, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But then again, you can counter with Stroud and Aiden O'Connell, right? Like the difference between those two, big difference right now, not even close. So I don't think you can go wrong. You pick what your gut says. I think they're right there. Like I think they're both top 20 wide receivers. And so you just kind of pick whichever one you want to roll with. I might roll with Adams matchup. I'm a Raiders fan. I think he's going to get force fed. The Raiders are kind of in desperation mode. I understand Stroud can run into a tough defense. I mean, a lot of people haven't had success against the Jets. It just is what it is. I mean, it's a tough defense. It's a tough defense. Even the best of, I talked about Drake London earlier. He didn't have a good game against them. Different quarterback. I know Stroud is, more of an elite quarterback. But then Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, both went off. Flip it over to the Bills. They smacked, the Jets. Shakur went off that game, and a bunch of other guys, caught touchdowns. So it's not like it's a big deal. Devontae Adams, even speaking of Devontae Adams, had 86 yards, 6 receptions, no touchdowns or nothing though. So, it's up to you. But you have a great team, man. You have a great team, and you can't really make a wrong decision on these ones. It's more about your gut at this point. Who you think will do better. Let's see. And my running backs are Kyren and A-Chain. Love your running backs. I'm such a huge fan of your running backs. There's no way you're benching those running backs either. I'm going to start Collins, I think, because even with Tank Daly, he's been stepping up. And without him, I feel like he's just going to get more targets. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Stroud's been feeding those dudes, man. You know what I mean? Like, they can't rely on, the running back. Hasn't really been great there for the running backs. Singletary was doing pretty good, but Pierce is blah. Not great. You have a great team, dude. Kyren, I love Kyren. I've even been offered like trades in Dynasty. Like for one of my teams, a playoff team tried to offer me a trade for Kyren. And I'm like, dude, I'm not trading Kyren. Like, I think Kyren is potentially top 5 running back. A-Chain, top 5 running back. Like I talked about A-Chain in a previous video last week, I think it was. And I even mentioned how every game where he had, I want to say it was 5 carries or more, whatever it was, he was I forget. Well, any game he had more than 1 carry, he scored like 20 plus fantasy points every single game, top 5 running back every single week. So you're crushing, man. There's no doubt you're going to crush it this week. Thanks, dude. Send a positivity way, of course. Please come back next week, Banana. I want to know how you did. I want to know how this team played out. I'm sure you're going to have a ton of fantasy points. I'm totally confident in what you got going there, man. So far, I think we're all caught up in the questions. I just want to remind everybody, because if a lot of questions don't come in anymore, if we're kind of slowing down on the conversation in the chat, you guys let me know. I do want to share the poll. I'm going to end the poll here for the Jerick McKinnon question that I had. 83% said they do not trust Jerick McKinnon. Only 16% said yes. Oh, Banana said he's subbing. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Again, like this video, guys. Sub, it means the world to me. Again, it takes 2 seconds for you, but it means everything to us. It really does. I love chatting with you guys. This is not just, a channel to, throw out content. Like, I want to communicate and chat with you guys. So I really care about your teams, care about how you do. I love talking to you guys every single week. Again, just a reminder really quick. This show is brought to you by Rival Fantasy. Rival Fantasy is a one and all fantasy platform for you guys. There is season-long leagues on there. Of course, obviously the season's over. It's ending. That's what we're talking about here. But I would love for you guys next season to have this app downloaded, or if you use desktop, you can go ahead and use desktop like you're seeing here on the screen, but download the Rival Fantasy Sports app. You guys can, start a league on here next year. This year was a ton of fun. It was our first year doing leagues on Rival Fantasy. This is what it looks like. This is how you manage your team. Everything is very fluid, very bright, very fun. You got and it's going to be even better next year. Like, the thing with the new platform, the thing that we're listening to the community and we're listening to you guys at what you want, we're just constantly evolving. Like, if you joined season long this year for Rival Fantasy in our first year, you would notice a totally different site or app since you started. Like, the improvements the dev team has been going crazy, adding what you guys are requesting, adding what we know is missing. And it's just going to keep evolving every single week. So you're going to see new things here. You even have in-league bets, which is one of the most unique things with Rival Fantasy. As you guys can see here, if you go to a matchup, you see this view bet option. And this view bet option is where you can actually bet on your team, or you can't bet against yourself. You can't bet against, but you can bet in other matchups. So like, this is my matchup. So I bet on myself, of course, and other people have bet against me and for me. But even in matchups that aren't my own, I can bet on them, right? So like, if you see here, I bet that this user would beat this user. So this is a really fun way for season long. No other sites are offering this in the platform. So definitely in-league bets, a very fun part of our service. What else do we have? If you're out of the fantasy playoffs, you're not winning, or you want to come to the league, you want to come to the site, you want to download the app, but you don't have a season-long league on there yet, play challenges. Head-to-head, who will score more fantasy points? Very simple. I love it. It's very easy. There's no props. There's nothing confusing about it. Right now, someone's got $6 on Lamar Jackson. You can take the CJ Stroud side. You can put $1, $5, $10, whatever you want. If you have vouchers and bonuses from us because you signed up and you made a deposit, your first deposit, we matched it up to $200 and give you a $25 free voucher. You can also use those, in your bonuses and voucher spots. If you don't like the challenge, skip it. $31 right now on Dak Prescott. If you believe Lamar Jackson will beat him this week at Fantasy Points, you take this side, you place whatever portion you want to bet on it, and you take it. You can also create your own challenges. I created Aidan O'Connell versus Joe Flacco. I can send this to my friends on the app, or I can just copy the link, share it anywhere, text messages, social media, whatever I want, share it with coworkers, family, friends, all that kind of stuff. This is challenges, a lot of fun. And then Fantasy Bingo, we created a card here earlier today on the stream. You create a lineup, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a kicker, and then a flex. Once you do that, a bingo card is created for you, and you just want to try to hit these achievements. So I'm hoping these players fill 5 in a row somewhere or 4 in a corner. It's a lot of fun to follow along with during the week. I highly suggest it. It's $1 a card. That's all it costs. If you see here earlier in the season, I spent $1 on a card. I won $204. All I did was hit these 5 in a row with some of these players here. You can actually see on the game log which players did it. But again, $204 in this bingo card. And if you look at the jackpot right now, the prize pool is over $1,000. And every time someone creates a bingo card, that goes up, that goes up, that goes up live. So this, like, lean up to the games on Sunday, this will keep building up. And then if someone wins or multiple people win, it'll get dispersed. If nobody wins, it just keeps rolling over. Lots of fun. Highly suggest you check it out. Again, if you're out of the fantasy playoffs, or you want to just add another extra layer of fun to it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, Rival Fantasy has it all. You can download the Rival Fantasy Sports app. If you go in the App Store, type Rival Fantasy Sports, it'll pop right up. Or just go to your desktop, rivalfantasy.com, sign up there. There's also a link in the description. So if you are using your desktop or you're on your phone, you can click that link and do it right from there. And again, if you do a deposit, first deposit match up to $200 plus a $25 free voucher, it's great. It's great. It's all I can do is recommend these things to you guys. Bulls fans, shout out to Bulls fans. Bulls fan 21, one of my best friends on here, because Bulls fan not only jumps in the chat, not only asks questions, not only participates in the combo on the live streams, Bulls fan is all over the videos we post throughout the week. Whether it doesn't matter if it's shorts, it doesn't matter if it's a 3-minute video, a 15-minute video. Bulls fans is dropping questions, comments. I love it. Bulls fan is all in the community, so I really appreciate that. Cooper Kupp or Jakobi Meyers, a question to my heart, Bulls fan. As a Raiders fan, this is a question to my heart. This is one of those questions where you're either trying to make the fantasy playoffs or you're in the fantasy playoffs, and you have this kind of decision because clearly if Cooper Kupp was 100%, we're not asking this question. You're not even considering it because Cooper Kupp is the man, elite. There's no reason why we would put him in the conversation with Jakobi Meyers. But he's not because he's been hurt. Things have been difficult. And so you ask yourself, do I toy with the idea of benching Jakobi Meyers, Cooper Kupp, who he had a good week last week, 16 points. Not a lot of yards. Receptions were okay, 6 receptions, but he had a touchdown. It kind of like saved the day for him, right? So then the question becomes, he's playing the Ravens, right? Tough matchup. We got the injury concerns, which even though he's playing well right now, doesn't necessarily go away because Cooper Kupp has been very fragile, if you will, right? And you have Jakobi Meyers on the other hand, who's been not missing games, not beat up, not hurt, not any of that. Low key playing well, 20 points last week against the Chiefs, 20 fantasy points in PPR. Had some down weeks, sure. Hasn't been perfect. The Raiders played some tough defenses. The rookie quarterback was still getting his feet under him. There was some valid excuses, if you will, for, some rough games. If we look at wide receivers on the season in PPR scoring, Jakobi Meyers is top 25. So we can't ignore that. That's a legitimate position. He's a legitimate wide receiver in fantasy this year, right? There's no way to deny that. And Cooper Kupp, obviously, due to the injuries and stuff, isn't that high up. So, do you play the stud wide receiver, the guy that nobody would ever question if he wasn't injured, or do you play the not necessarily a stud, not elite by any means, but the consistent, healthy, crafty, they get crafty with him, wide receiver? And here's what I'm going to say. I think you still go Kupp. It hurts me to say that as a Raider fan, as someone who believes in Meyers, who thinks he's a very good wide receiver. I don't think he's lucked his way into the top 25 at wide receiver this season. But I think that Kupp has too much upside when healthy. The matchups don't really matter because Kupp is Kupp. And this offense knows how to get him and Puka the ball. He has been, tough to deal with. And again, he's playing one of the top, ranked defenses. But I think I still gamble on the stud. I still go with the stud. I still go with the stud guy. Again, if you're really concerned, if you don't trust Kupp, if you're, rather just have a safer game in Meyers, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to debate with you about it because I think that you're being bold, but fortune favors the bold. I love people who take risks in fantasy, who go against the grain, who don't go with the obvious or with the crowd. I appreciate those people. But I would lean Kupp. On this one, Bulls fan. But I respect either way you go, and I want to know which way you do go. So make sure you let me know next live stream, which will probably be next Saturday. I want to know which way you went with this. Duarte asks, are you guys going to have a playoff challenge? First, hold on. Bulls fan, thank you for the advice. You're welcome. I appreciate you, man. I want you to know that. I say it every stream. There's nothing I can appreciate more. I'm not asking you guys for like money or for, anything like that. The only thing I ask for is subscribe to the channel, comment, be a part of the community, chat, comment on the videos. You do all of that. and I'm always gonna be, grateful for that and appreciate you for that. So you'll probably hear me thank you every single week, and I'm gonna keep doing that. I don't care, Bulls fan, because that's who I am. Because I am appreciative of it. All right, back to the workday. Are you guys gonna have a playoff challenge? So when you say playoff challenge, we are going to have challenges, like not so obvious, like the challenges on the screen or the bingo will be available during the NFL playoffs, if that's what you're saying. There won't be anything specific like, oh, there's some thousand user playoff challenge or something like that. There won't be nothing like that, but you can play challenges and bingo throughout the playoffs. So whether you're in the fantasy playoffs or not, it doesn't even matter. Like, you can play these all the time, so they'll always be available. Same thing with NBA. If you're an NBA fan, Duarte, I don't know if you are. There'll be there's NBA ones there as well. Those are always available as well. But yeah, NFL, these challenges are going to be available in the playoffs. So even if your season's over, fantasy season's over, whatever, you'll be able to still play challenges and fantasy bingo. And again, fantasy bingo is $1 a card, just a fun little way to play. Just another layer of fun during the fantasy season. Then challenges, again, I use challenges a lot of times to settle my arguments, to settle debates, to settle a lot of times, because you guys know I'm a diehard Raiders fan. I love to throw Raiders players out on there because people hate on the Raiders, or a lot of people know I'm a big Raider fan, and so I create challenges. If you guys have rival accounts, please add me on your friends. If you see up here, you click on your account and you can actually go into friends, and you can add a friend, pending request, refer a friend. So you can actually get rival money too if you refer people. So if you have friends, family, whatever it is, if you refer users, you'll get free vouchers on Rival for rival money. But yeah, I want to add you guys. I would love to, because when I create challenges, I sometimes just send them to all my friends on the list. And so you don't have to accept them, of course, but I send them out to everybody. So my username is Clock Dodgers on there. So if you guys go to this Add a Friends tab, and then you just search Clock Dodgers like that, my name will come up. And then obviously I'm not going to see it because I am Clock Dodgers. But if you put it on there, you guys can add me. Or if you guys drop your username in the chat, I'll just add you. Whatever's easier for you guys, because I want to add you guys to my friends. So if you guys drop your names in the chat, your usernames on there, or if you want to just add me, Clock Dodgers, right there, like how I have it on the screen, CLOCKDODGERS, you can send me a request and I'll accept it. And then once you do that, like I said, you'll be able to send challenges directly to me. If you see, I'll show you guys one more time. You create a challenge like this. You create challenge down here. You select the sport that you want. Obviously, we want NFL, right? So we would go in here. You'll have a list of players that pop up, and you can just search whoever you want as well. So I'll just search like Josh Jacobs right here, right? So then I have Josh Jacobs, and then say, I know someone who's let's see. Say I like Josh Jacobs this week against Alvin Kamara. I would create that challenge. I would hit continue. I would pick my side of the challenge, which is Josh Jacobs. I'll put an amount on it. And then once I place the bet, I'm now able to add it. So like send it to any of my friends. And so sometimes if you guys are my friend, I'll just go through here and send it to everybody and let somebody pick it up. I do this as a fun little game, because a lot of times my Raiders challenges, people feel like Neil is going to lose this challenge very easily. He's such a Raiders fan. And so they race to pick him up. So if you were my friend, or if you just talk to me, I can send it directly to you, and that's it. Or if you don't want to send it to any of your friends, copy link and share it on social. Very simple. So that's how that works. If you guys have any questions on how to use Rival Fantasy, have any questions about anything with it, any features with it, hit me up at Rival Fantasy. I handle the socials, so just hit me up on there, and I'll be happy to discuss everything with you guys. All right, it looks like we've done almost an hour and a half of the show today. Everyone, it looks like most of the questions have come through for the day, I'm assuming. We've gone over the Thursday night recap. We've gone over a lot of injuries. Guys, remember that Justin Jefferson is back this week. He's going to ball out against the Raiders, I assume. He hasn't played since like week 5. I drop other content on the channel that's not live streams as well, so you guys can always go back and consume those. I do Not So Obvious Locks of the Week. I do Risers of the Week. Also on the website, we have a blog that has like waivers each week and all that kind of stuff. So definitely go check all that kind of stuff out. Stay on top of the news, because there may be some injuries that come out last minute for you guys. And unfortunately, like I said, we're not here tomorrow for the live stream. I apologize about that, but that's why I'm doing this one tonight. We'll do one again probably next Saturday. More than likely, we'll also have this kind of schedule adjustment. But other than that, guys, I appreciate you guys. As always, again, at Rival Fantasy on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok, follow us. Let me know if you watch the show and you follow us, let me know and I'll follow you back on there. Just let me know, hey, Neil, I watched the show. I'm following you on Twitter, whatever it is, and I'll follow you back. Also, download the Rival Fantasy Sports app, Rival Fantasy Sports on your app store. Go to rivalfantasy.com to use the desktop version if that's what you prefer. And then, of course, any questions you guys come up with, feel free to just drop them in the videos that are already posted or on this live stream. I always answer all the questions that get posted in the comments. So I will definitely respond to all those. Good luck this week. Thank you guys for joining me again. I know it was a little impromptu, a little late week adjustment, but I appreciate you guys for coming through as always. That is it for today. I am Neil. This is the Rival Fantasy Sports live stream, and I am out. Good luck to you guys in your week 14 games. If it's the playoffs for you, good luck. I hope you win in advance. If it's not, and you're trying to fight for that playoff spot, I hope you win. Let us know. Come back next week. Let us know how you guys did. I am Neil. Again, this is the Rival Fantasy live stream, and I'm out.